questions, you know, at any time.
Right.
And having input is good, because there's things we may not realize or may have overlooked, but being constantly interrupted in a regular meeting, I don't think stands for, and having, if we had that stuff written, it would give us
Everybody time to think
every
about it.
time to look at it, think about it, and say, "Ooh, okay, this isn't so bad, and maybe we can just tweak it a little bit." And
I don't have a problem with that. What about you?
Yeah, I like the comment that, you're right. It's a-
The, again, it seems to me that there's an awful lot that lays right in that opening statement by the chairman,
Mhm.
of whoever the chairman might be. And if the chairman goes through and says, basically what we've got tonight is 2 ordinances to work through, and I'm gonna declare it a workshop night, because we need to get this done. Workshop rules are, the chairman may call workshop for the purpose of conducting work relating to the board's activities. The general public shall be barred from addressing the board unless the majority of the board members permits the public to speak. All workshops are open to the public. Why can't you have a workshop?
Perfect.
Anytime you want to. I don't see if there's anything in any of this that says the chairman can't declare it a workshop, and that, again, this is not.
I circled the same thing, so.
I did-
I circled the same thing.
This is great that we're
Every
so on
meeting is
the
a
same
workshop.
page.
I mean,
Yeah.
realistically.
Yeah,
Realistically.
We'll borrow my
what
notes.
situation would create an executive session on ORC?
If they're out of hand. If anybody gets out of hand, I'm gonna
Yeah,
stop
there are-
regardless of who's what. I'm not
There are,
gonna.
yeah, there are very specific rules about how
To go
how
into
and why you
executive,
can
yeah.
have
I have never
executive
seen a
session.
planning board or an appeals board go. The only time I could think that you might go into executive session that I can think of would be possibly a conflict of interest situation,
Yeah.
or I really,
I know.
it would be very
That makes sense.
unusual,
Mhm.
Makes sense.
Right.
very unusual.
And again, like I say, there are 4 or 5 criteria for executive
Yeah.
sessions, and
It's really strict.
it's very strict.
Okay,
You don't-
so I
you
think
just-
that,
So we want workshops, and for right now, I mean, because there's nothing in we can write it, so there's nothing in the rules that prohibits comment. But I still like the idea of talking about the communications, the submitting written comments,
Yeah.
I mean, we can shorten that up to 5 days or make it more user-friendly in some way if you like, 'cause 7 days is a long time. We don't do packets for this typically, well, we will be doing packets, because normally what's in your packet is the strike-through from the preceding meeting. We haven't had that opportunity because we haven't been able to do any constructive work. But that's
we've had 2
normally,
meetings on plastic and we haven't done anything.
right. So normally the strike-through is what's in your packet and a very loose agenda. Usually it just says, you know, review of, continuing review of, plastic bags or whatever, draft attached, and then I can add a communications, and that's the opportunity for people to submit their written. I think written comment is great. The public can come in and read it, the
Everybody
newspaper
can have
can
a
come read it,
copy.
everyone can have a copy. It's all right there, So workshops and communications sounds like the way you guys, and a very strong call to order.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's looking to hide anything.
No.
As long as, in order to get stuff done in a reasonable time.
What's been happening to us is there's so much public comment that we're not ever doing the
Can't get
workshop
anything
piece.
done.
We're not doing anything. So, that's just been our frustration. We're not doing our job.
Yeah. The rule thing's gonna change it.
So does
This is what I would
the
like to
ordinance
do.
review have to have does it have to be open to the public?
Yes,
Yes.
Yes.
all meetings have to be open to the public,
Okay.
unless they're in executive session.
Okay.
So they do have to be open, but again, there's nothing that says you need to receive any comment whatsoever.
I think we're categorized, our meetings are categorized under workshops.
Okay.
I
That's
really
the way
do.
I believe it.
That's how I see it. I mean, it's every one of them, that's what it is, this workshop. You're working on the.
What I propose we do then, so technically, Sherry, you are not yet a member of this board until you are elected by the planning board presumably next Wednesday night.
Okay.
Jim, you still need to be sworn in. What I would like to do is we have this meeting scheduled for the 30th. This is
Okay.
very timely because the select board meets, if I'm not mistaken, Dawn, on the 5th of February, the Monday following the Super Bowl.
Thanks for helping me out there with that.
The Super Bowl is like a religious holiday in my house. I have a small shrine.
There. Especially when we're
I don't
going
even,
back
I'm not
again.
into Super Bowl.
I won't explain the candles, but anyway. But this would work really well, so we could have, I can draft rules of procedure for the organizational meeting of the 30th. That way you guys, you will have enough voting members, you will have a quorum if you have 3, you can vote to approve or continue to amend the rules of procedure, and they can then go to the select board for the meeting of February the 5th. That way, when you meet that Wednesday, which is the 7th, 6th or 7th?
6.
By February 6th, when you actually begin actual review of the marijuana ordinances, you will have duly adopted rules of procedure in place. How does that sound as a,
Perfect.
Perfect.
okay,
Good to me.
Okay, I want to throw another idea.
yeah,
We
Good.
talked about, with this one, seeing we've had a like an ad hoc committee of ordinance review. Would I be saying that correctly?
no. It turns out I have been mistaken. I thought it was, when I spoke with Kristen Mason about the concept of rules of procedure for this, she said, no, you guys are a full committee.
It's actually in.
But I'm talking
in
about the
big
marijuana.
book.
It's actually in the big.
I'm talking about the marijuana, the people who wrote these ordinances, that committee. What are they? Were they an ad hoc committee of
Yeah.
ours?
No,
No.
an ad hoc committee of the select board.
Yeah, right.
Because this was too complex for us to take on. You had a specialized committee.
I don't know why.
Should it
That's
buy?
right. Again,
Well, sounds a little flawless, but should we pass that through us? Why, they did basically what would be our job normally.
Correct.
Why are they having to go through us? Why aren't they just going directly to the selectmen?
I do not know. Don, maybe you can share some.
I think it's the old process. If it simply went from that committee back to the selectmen, someone would say, you have an ordinance review committee, why don't you have them look at it?
But didn't
We
they
could-
function
we
as
could-
the ordinance review committee?
They did.
They functioned for us as a subcommittee.
Well, they weren't, as I say, they had nothing to do with the ordinance.
Very
review committee.
confusing.
They were selected, they were appointed by the select board. They had nothing to do with the ordinance review committee. I don't know
So
why
they
it was
built
done
it,
this
we're
way.
reviewing it. That's basically,
But
they built it, we're
anyway,
reviewing
here
it.
we are. I don't know, it doesn't really matter how we got here. Here we are, and this is what we're charged with doing. Do I think that the members of that committee, I mean, that's why I want to have this scheduled public. You know, I want to be able to say to everybody, hey, Pat, hey, you know, hi, good to see you. I know you guys worked really hard on this, and the meetings are going to be the first and third Wednesdays of the month, so that everyone who's worked on this or who has an interest at least is aware of what is occurring. Doesn't mean they can come and speak, just means that's what we're doing. And, you know, yeah, I mean, this is, everyone know Pat McCartney?
I had,
Mr. Chair,
No, I know I'm not supposed to, maybe I'm not supposed to speak.
Right now, we don't
I
have
just
any
have-
rules.
I don't have, I think the majority says okay.
Okay, no, I just had a question, I mean, so we will not be able to speak unless we're spoken to,
Correct.
basically? If, I mean, if we're asked questions, we can answer, but otherwise we cannot
Yes.
speak, okay.
so,
That's not, it's not to shut anybody out.
And she's not, she sounds fine with it.
No, I just want to clarify it so that I can pass it on to the rest of the committee, whoever decides to show up.
Yeah.
I have to let them, warn them that you are not allowed to ask questions or
Wow.
to put input in.
Hopefully, after the select board meeting of February 5th, we will have rules, just like every other committee, that we can actually hand, this is the whole point of this, so that there will be rules adopted, and, you know, we can hand this to people and say, this is the way it's gonna be, and it applies to you and to you and to you, you know,
That's it.
yeah, that's it.
That's fine, I mean, I just
Go ahead.
wanted to clarify it.
Yeah, Joel?
Are those, I'm with you, this has been confusing ever since I knew anything about it. So, are those rules for the ordinance review committee?
That's what we're talking about.
Any committee?
No.
Nope.
This board is talking about adopting their own rules of procedure.
So, just help my brain, because I've been trying to learn for 3 years now. The ordinance review committee at this point in time is an ad hoc committee,
No,
correct?
it's a
No.
full committee.
We just found it out.
How come when the girls gave me the thing about the codes, it wasn't?
I don't
How
know.
come they never
There
knew
seems
it?
to be quite a bit of confusion. I mean, it's it's not an ad hoc committee, it's a standing committee, but it acts in an
Advisory.
advisory capacity. That, I guess is the,
And that's in those codes, they just didn't
Yeah.
see them that day I asked.
right.
So why
as-
is it called an ordinance review committee if they create the ordinances? Why isn't it just called an ordinance committee?
Normally
That
they don't, normally they don't create
No,
ordinances.
But they did,
For rent.
I thought you
When?
said. So they do.
As I say,
Yeah.
the wing thing broke the mold. I had never seen that before. It's never been done before. I don't know why it occurred that way. I had nothing to do with it. I didn't work on wind. You called, you
I
asked
said,
to have.
help,
Yeah, you said,
Yeah.
Sarah, come say, come do this thing, because it's,
we're a mess, but,
but that was, but that had never happened before, Jewel. It had always in the past, it had always just been, gee, I noticed there's a discrepancy in site plan between the setback and the building code has something different, and this is very confusing,
Yeah.
and we need to make it right.
with technology,
Okay.
kind of like wind. I
Well,
mean,
because
we-
when,
we-
if you'd heard my conversation with Sherry when I first asked her questions about how that worked with the ordinance review committee in the wind, I said, so you reviewed it, so who made it? Well, we did. I said, what do you mean you made it?
Yeah,
I said, you reviewed it, so we
That,
made it.
that was like the monkey, that was the monkey wrench that
Okay.
opened this Pandora's box, which is why we're here talking about how to somehow get back to having
Right.
ORC being a working session committee. It's not a public hearing forum, okay? The select board holds public
Okay.
hearings, not the ordinance review committee.
So, and then talking with Dwayne and Sherry one night in writing, and I asked, is the ordinance review committee's job actually just to, I think you touched upon it, review what's there and see if it is conflicting with any,
Correct.
if I passed in an ordinance for popcorn
Correct.
and wagons, I
Right.
don't know.
Right,
That you would just, that's their job.
correct.
And I was
That's
not
what I always,
right.
here for the last one, and as I said when I came in, the local access is just trying to film as much as we can for people that miss things, and I wished I had seen the last one. I wished it had been filmed, because I don't assume, and I just file stuff, but from 3 different sources, it sounded pretty out of control and pretty
Organized.
Well, that's why we're
just,
having.
they couldn't work.
That's what we're doing, yeah.
And so
what
that's
we're trying to
why-
do.
And so that's
Because
what
that
you're doing
was-
now, right?
Yeah.
Right, and
So we're kind of
because-
explaining that to the viewers audience at the
Right,
same
so
time.
so yeah, I don't mind putting this into words, so that's why we're having this organizational meeting tonight before we start reviewing any ordinances, is somehow, I don't ever wanna say that we don't love public comment and we don't welcome public comment, because we do, but somehow the last meeting of the ordinance review committee became one enormous forum for public comment and 0 opportunity for actual review of ordinance. And so what we are trying to do is come up with some rules of procedure to prevent that from happening, so that the words that you all took the time to put on paper get reviewed, and not, an hour of listening to how people feel about whatever they feel.
Well, when I heard that it was so confusing, because that's what I said to them, that's not your job to hear that, right? There's nothing they can do about how they feel, or,
Right.
and I think when, as a committee, us thinking about coming for the other ordinances would be to answer questions, not just to be, because it's confusing.
Well, and that's a concern I have after the Sarah Southam thing. We reviewed that ordinance and we were lost, completely lost because of the science. So, I think it's important to have the author, if it's not us, of that ordinance, like these guys, here to answer questions, because
Well, as I
Yes, I know.
say, and that's why I feel so strongly about having regular meeting dates so that we can put it right out there that these are the dates
Yeah,
and the
yeah.
times that we are meeting and you are welcome to
And
attend, but not necessarily participate. Any participation is a.
But we might
and
need you.
there's no reason that we couldn't, if we know that we're working on XYZ on this date, there's no reason we can't get a hold of that
That's
person or that group and say,
Right,
we would like you here so that
that's right.
you can answer questions that we may have.
It's the same thing goes on the committees in Augusta.
So,
They know the people in the audience who have the answers to the questions that they don't.
Absolutely,
That's the
Right.
only time you're allowed to talk and can talk.
yeah.
so
They just ask strictly right out.
every board in the town, of the town have
Rules of procedure,
rules of procedure.
except this one,
Except us.
because we've never
Because
needed
we've
it.
never,
We've
yeah.
never, it's
Never
never come
really-
up. I
We
mean,
used to
they're
sit
not-
around a
they're not
round table in
required.
the back
We
office.
wrote the wind ordinance around a table with a lot of information, just,
Right,
and
Yeah.
use a lot of other town
So-
stuff.
It almost makes sense, and maybe there's a reason it can't, but wouldn't it make sense if all the rules and procedures for all the boards were the same?
no. The reason being,
Just much
the
different
plan- Well,
aspects.
yeah, the planning board, the select board has certain legal obligations that they're required, that personnel decisions and so forth that only, that they can do. The planning board and the board of appeals are actually truly judicial bodies that, you can appeal decisions by the planning board to the board of appeals, from the board of appeals, you can appeal decisions to the superior court. We don't, so it has to be very prescribed because it has to match
Okay.
Maine state statute. This is much more informal. But it's for the benefit of,
Yeah, we're not making any decisions.
right, no.
Right.
You're making decisions
Well,
about
we're not-
language. You're
Yeah,
right,
you're
you're
making-
drafting
yes.
laws. You're drafting laws,
We're
people,
drafting
don't
laws,
underestimate.
we're not.
But we're
They
not-
don't have
we're
the
not-
last word.
We're
not
just
approving them.
deciding that they're
No.
public. and-
No.
yeah.
Right, you don't have the last word on it.
No,
Right, well, all we could do, we make those suggestions,
right,
and then then the selectmen review them, and review our suggestions,
right.
and approve with town approval.
Right, so when they go to set the warrant, I mean, ultimately, they make the decision about whether or not it goes on the warrant, but typically they hold a public hearing. They are certainly required to have a public hearing if it goes on the warrant. I mean, that's absolutely mandated, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. So anybody who's sitting here saying, but, I didn't get to speak, no, that's right, because you're gonna get to speak in April or May or whatever.
Ordinance can't be an ordinance unless it has a public hearing.
Right,
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 but
so,
they can have a public hearing before they put it on the
Absolutely.
warrant. So they could actually,
they can have a
two
public hearing
hearings on
anytime,
this.
absolutely,
Right,
they can have a
good.
hearing anytime, but, there's nothing in your rules that says you have to have public hearings, and I would recommend that you don't have, you don't have public hearings, because that's what the select
Just
board is.
confusing.
So
They could have one and not show up.
I think that we just basically set it up that we do what we're supposed to be doing, which is reviewing the stuff and making those suggestions of clarifying and stuff, and we do that.
Okay,
I mean, some of this stuff we definitely want to have.
So we want to base ours on workshops.
yeah,
Yeah.
Not regular meetings, no executive sessions, no
Right.
public hearing,
No.
no site walks.
no,
The only thing I would say about site walks was, it was on the planning board, really good to see Everett's Grow facility and understand some of that.
we can, then let's include sidewalks.
But there's,
If necessary, yeah.
Because
Yeah.
that was
The other
such
thing-
incredible information on that, a filtration system
I
work.
agree, the other thing
Blew my
you
mind.
might want to do is you might want it to be in your rules that you can have public hearings. And that way, I mean, that gives you even more
So in order
weight to say, hey, look this session is a workshop, people. We'll have a public hearing, when we finish our draft, we think we might hold a public hearing before we recommend or not recommend sending it to the selectmen. I mean, so it's at your discretion. I'm not saying you should, that's just an idea. I don't know if you.
In order to do that type of
I think
thing,
we
it
should.
has to be in the procedures,
Given how controversial I expect this to be, it will make,
anything.
you know, anything that you guys are doing, you know, you need to be able to look at people straight in the eye and say, look, there's no talking tonight, okay, this is a workshop, this is what we're doing, okay? And then when we're done doing that, maybe we'll go take a sidewalk, or maybe we'll take a sidewalk during a meeting, I don't know.
But that type of thing, saying those things should be in the procedures, basically the CYA.
I feel like hearings be the selectmen's job.
Okay, then
I really do, because if we have a hearing,
I think it would
then
actually
then
be a
we're doing ought to
procedure for
pass,
public hearings.
not ought to pass. We shouldn't be going to selectmen, this ought not to pass, because of
No,
public.
that's not,
I think
that's
that's
not
the
our,
selectmen's.
No, I mean,
Yeah.
it's a question, do you even want provisions for public hearings or not?
is it
Yeah.
considered a
Okay,
public
no.
hearing?
Leave it to the selectmen.
Let's
Like
use
two
this
sets
as
of-
an example. Is it considered a public hearing if we're sitting here having a workshop and we want Pat to come in to answer questions, because we're gonna have
No,
questions?
because we have to advertise the public hearing.
No, because we need,
Specific rules about
authors.
public hearings.
I know that you have to advertise public hearings.
because then we can say, why did you guys write this?
Right.
Why is it written like this?
Right.
What does this mean? What's behind it? I think it'll be really beneficial.
And I think that Dwayne is right, I mean, that's redundant, it's the select board's purpose to have the town
Okay,
meeting.
I just want to be sure if one undrafted this, we're all,
I'm sorry, I
you know,
No, that's also on the planning board.
No, I
So she
think
knows
that,
what
I
goes
think
on,
that it
yeah.
should
Yeah.
be, in order to get the work done, we should be doing the stuff that's not
okay, I agree.
Yeah, I don't see the purpose
re-stepping
of it.
and
Yeah, and
doing
Jewel was
stuff.
on the committee too. Jewel, go ahead.
Oh, I just, two questions that pop into mind when you were talking about the ordinance and the select board and back and forth. After the select board, after it goes back and forth till whatever it's done, it then goes to an attorney, right? Isn't it an
Yeah.
attorney that decides whether what is written is legal?
At the end of the
Just
day.
if it's legal, right.
So there was that, I just wanted to make sure, because I thought that was a step. And then the other is, you mentioned the select board meeting, and then something, I think you said February 5th.
Mhm.
And you mentioned the ordinances that the marijuana committee wrote, but don't they have to finish the plastics first?
They didn't act on the plastic, they sent it back to the select board without acting.
Because
Because they were not able to do their work.
Okay.
We never did the work.
I filmed the select board last week, and it was.
No, it wasn't
there
on the
about-
agenda because I didn't have the revised draft from,
Oh, okay.
but it will be on the select board agenda for the
Oh,
5th.
okay.
And the select board does have to, if I'm not mistaken, I'm 99.9% sure that they have to approve rules of procedure. So this gives us enough time to have a meeting on the 30th. By then I'll have a draft of this for you to review, which will be public. And then you guys can do your thing, and Dwayne, you can participate, you can send comments via email or, you know, whatever, even if you're not physically here. And then you can, but by then you'll have a quorum, an official quorum, and you can vote on them on the 30th, and then it can be sent to the select board for the meeting of the 6th. The time schedule works.
And then on the 6th, we would choose officers
Yeah.
to set it all up
Yeah.
and be good to go.
Yeah.
It should be
We
the
could actually have
7th,
the
if the
meeting.
5th is Monday, Wednesday
Maybe
should be
it's
the
the
7th.
No, Tuesday's the 5th.
Oh,
Yeah, so we
Wednesday's
meet on
the
and we
6th.
meet on Wednesday, so the 7th is correct.
No, 7th is Thursday.
are you looking at the right month? Because the
I'm looking
Super
at
Bowl's the
February.
4th. The Super Bowl's the 4th.
I thought
No,
the
Super Bowl's on the 3rd.
It's all based on the Super Bowl.
Yeah, it's all based around Super Bowl.
I have to
Get
plan
the Super Bowl right, that everything else fits.
time the ripening of my avocados.
What time is the Super Bowl?
6:30.
Blasphemous question. And where is it gonna
I just wanted to know what time
Actually,
it is.
it starts at 11.
Where is it, Sarah? And where's
Is it
it gonna
this year?
be, Sarah?
It's the 3rd.
No,
Sarah, where's the
that's
Super
when
Bowl?
we start.
Oh, that's when, yeah.
Pre-game.
Is it Tampa, isn't it
No,
Tampa?
it's is it
Orlando?
Atlanta?
Florida somewhere.
So
I
yeah,
thought it was
Wednesday's the
Florida.
6th.
I don't know.
Wednesday's
hang on.
the 6th, yeah.
Wednesday's the 6th.
So do you have another member that's not here?
No, we have a
We need
vacancy.
another member.
Okay, so who left? Someone left, because Jim.
Patrick?
Okay.
Two people left,
two-
Levi
and
Levi
And
left?
Levi.
and Patrick, and I can't say Patrick's last name.
Zerminski,
That's who.
Okay. All right.
that's close enough.
That's good enough, yeah. So Jim is on, and now we need one more.
Dawn, I appreciated your kind of encouragement to the reporter that was at the select board meeting to do
But
an
I didn't
article
see
about
anything.
sitting. Yeah, I saw nothing. That could be a whole article in itself. Because it is interesting. People complain about what's not happening, but they don't step up and do it. You did. You guys did.
So,
Well,
um,
yeah, it's a little different.
Okay.
so speaking of that, this would be if you would like to make a recommendation to the select board about the structure of your committee, you could do that too. So most boards have staggered terms, 2-year terms, 3-year terms, for reasons I don't know. Again, the nature of this committee was very different when it came into being, however, a decade, it's not more than 50, I haven't worked here that long.
Been quite a while.
It's a very short period of time that this committee has existed, and again, so for reasons I don't fully understand, it's just 1-year appointments. Every other board, that I work for,
Right,
rec board,
it-
appeals
it-
board, it's longer term, so it's up, again, I don't think it's really that important for what we're trying to do right now, but just put it in the back of your brain.
I don't
You
like
might
the
wanna-
staggered ones, because I never know.
Yeah, but the advantage to it,
It's
and the whole
continuity.
reason is because you're gonna have people, it's the overlapping.
Yeah.
And instead
I
of
see.
sitting there, okay, next January, we gotta go sit here, go through the whole thing again, and you spend
Okay.
2 meetings learning things.
I don't think it's critical for what you guys are trying to do by June. Well, from my point of view, I put it out there just because it is unusual to have a committee like that. What you guys, I think, are really trying to do is be productive, to get something, whatever it is, ready for June town meeting. That to me seems like what you're,
Right.
what are you laughing at me?
I just told her your haircut's really cute.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll take
Appreciate
mine. That's why I've got it on, because I need a haircut.
But, so really what we're trying to do is we're trying to set up, and I don't know, Dawn, off the top of my head, but I think that if there is going to be a public hearing, typically those occur in like April. So you actually only have like 2.5 months to get, which I think should probably be, these are well done, so I don't think it's an impossible task by any stretch of the imagination, but it will be impossible if every meeting turns into an opportunity for public comment.
Yeah, so I think we're,
I think we're good on that. I think that it should, any of those groups should have overlapping
Yeah,
things so that you don't have to restart and rewrite the book every single year.
I just, as I say, for
That's just a suggestion.
practical purposes, what we're trying to do is, we want to see, these people have taken the time to meet and do work, and, and we thank you for your work, and now you have an opportunity to review that work in a constructive environment, and then, there will be comment on it, and it either will or will not go to town meeting based on public comment and how the select board responds to that. Is that reasonable?
Yeah, it's not our job to decide if it goes
Right, no, it's not.
to
What if those 4 ordinances, let's say, just, could select and say, no, we're not going to vote, but then someone brings them by petition.
Yeah,
to
then
the select-
that carries.
And then that
They
carries
can do it.
directly to a hearing to the
That is
warrant.
correct. That is correct.
Because I think that's
Yeah.
what's gonna happen with
And
some of this
speaking of
stuff.
by the way, not to ruin your good time up at the Snowdio while you,
I'll be on the trail every day, almost into Canada, New Hampshire. I'm so far
I
the
have
way
had
back.
meetings, you cannot vote by telephone,
Right.
but I have had several recreation board meetings where we have had participation by members over the telephone. Again, no, you cannot
I'll
vote by
probably
telephone.
try. I'm thinking I'm gonna.
But if you would like, I'm just putting it
Yeah.
out there as an option, it actually has worked very well. You can listen and hear and
Okay.
make comment. Again, we've just been advised by the town attorney that no votes may be done by telephone, but there's nothing that says.
I don't want my whole wild group over there hearing doing it.
What are we missing?
We rent 2 houses with quite a bit
We'll
of
be eating
people.
leftover jalapeno poppers and guacamole and.
It's quite a big.
It sounds
This
fun.
is a prime example of why we need rules. Guacamole. Gotta have fun.
So,
Dwayne, what you just said, just if I can, just a clarification, what you said is the selectmen can say there's gonna be no ordinances?
Right, they can say that doesn't go to the people.
so for
But-
example, the plastic, but let's use plastic bags, because this is an excellent live example. So this committee was split on a 2-2 vote whether to,
Work on it or not.
work on it or not, and they chose, there was not a consensus, it goes back to the select board. So the select board can do one of 2 things, they can send it back, they can ask the ordinance review committee to try again, we have new members. Or they can say, no, that's that, but then Sarah South and her people, and her friends, absolutely can circulate a petition and circumvent the entire ordinance review committee and ask, and have it, placed on the warrant by virtue of petition.
And my suspicion is
They
that
will.
when we have our next meeting and the plastic bag issue comes up, it would be very easy for Sarah Southam and I forget what her name is,
Maddie,
to say, well, you guys can act on this, but you had an ordinance review committee, and we told them that we were going to refine, do more to it, and
and they did,
and they didn't get a chance to listen to it.
they did get a chance.
What does the selectman say? Well, too bad, they didn't,
Yeah.
you said you were coming back with something, and they didn't get to listen to it. So here you are in one of those, do we
Yeah,
just go ahead and make our decision, or do we figure that the procedure may have got somehow mucked up simply because we had a bunch of people that wanted to banter back and forth and ruin an hour and a half of somebody's volunteerism to come here and try to listen to something that maybe you don't like it, maybe you do, but it's
We don't get
procedure
paid
in
for
business.
this?
What's that?
We don't get paid for this?
Unfortunately not.
But there's a difference because the marijuana, the town has voted to legalize marijuana. So how can you walk away from ordinances for that?
I'm not a lawyer, I don't.
I think that, on Donnie's comment and yours, I think that anybody that submits something, whatever it is, it should be, what's the words I want? It should be,
Respectfully reviewed,
yes.
yeah.
So, everybody should have that right to have
Who
it
are we to
reviewed.
make that decision to
Right.
go?
And all we're doing
That's
is
what's
just
happening.
looking at it and reviewing it and saying,
Right now.
okay, it's great,
Yeah, you
except
need
for
to have
you
a-
can't, you've got one section that says
Right.
you can't have it on Main Street, but then
Right, I
on
mean,
this
it's
piece it says it
helpful-
can be on Main
It's
Street.
helpful if these things are consistent, if it's 1,000 feet in this one, it's helpful if it's 1,000, it's
Right,
helpful,
and
and
that's,
that's,
Right. So
At your
Don,
last meeting,
It's
ultimately,
pretty
what you had was, you had people sitting out there going back and forth at you guys, simply believing that if they come here and beat the hell out of you, that they'll change your mind.
which they did.
And, which they did, and a lot of them, I hear it at the Duck Mart every morning, good thing we showed up, told everybody what the hell to do. It went back to the selectmen, and I heard somebody look me right in the face today and say, that plastic bag shit needs to go away. It's in your hands now, it needs to go away. That's
so
why that
will
might
the
be.
selectmen
That's
pick it up and make a decision? Can they make a decision whether or not to go forward with that?
Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
When you mean go forward, you mean send it
To a hearing to the board.
It's basically bypassed us because
Well, the
Well,
draft,
why shouldn't it come back if
there's a new
if
draft.
that group?
there is a new
If
draft.
there's a new draft,
did?
yes.
Okay.
The old draft,
The new draft, they made the changes to the language about farmers markets and they took out the,
everything we
the
asked them to
recording
do.
of bags and
yeah,
pricing.
yeah, they did all that and that's what went back, that's what went to the selectmen. You guys didn't actually get a chance to see it in
Yeah.
writing because that didn't happen. You know, and the only other concern I have and is time. You know, I don't know, because we haven't started this, how long this is, what I would be I would be I actually hope the select board does do something with it, just in the interest of time. I have some concerns, just looking at the volume of paper that we have here. You know, I think
Right.
everyone, you know, the marijuana committee spent a lot of time too, and, you know, you don't wanna be feeling rushed or, you know, hasty about their words, just because you're concerned about plastic bags. Maybe there's time to do both, I just don't know.
The
the
plastic
answer.
bag one, I think we could have done that night, line by line, and done with it.
Then maybe it should come back, but.
And then we could have just given it to the selectmen and let them
And
make the
with
decision.
rules, it will be a lot easier to
Right.
accomplish that.
So what happened last time, was that, I don't understand, I'm trying to learn again about town politics. So is it possible that there are situations where some parties purposely interfere just to take up time so that things go their
I
way?
wouldn't
Oh.
answer that.
We
I wouldn't-
So your rules,
No comment.
so your rules, and
Just look
so
at the
that other
news.
things don't have to be looked at later on if they keep taking up more time. So your rules should really help with that.
That's the point.
So- I gotta answer Pat on.
That's why that's what prompted this meeting, Jewel, is
If,
it's a lot easier if you
We
have.
were dead in the
somebody,
water.
You know.
yeah,
Well, it sounded like it, it sounded sad.
answering Pat's, if the town's moratorium on marijuana is not in place, we follow state rules.
We don't have a moratorium on recreational marijuana, we have one on medical marijuana, which the committee has not done yet.
Yeah, that's the thing. With Britain right now, the people have chosen to leave the union. And Parliament has said no to a deal. Well, in a few days, they're leaving. And they have to follow whatever else was written. And the people don't want it that way. People want, let's say, to have marijuana. So,
So what she asked is
Yeah.
if the select board, if the ordinances go to them, the four that we have presented, go to them and they say we don't want to give this to the public, are you saying that then it would go by the state?
yeah. Because
Yeah,
we
but
don't
that's
have
not our,
rules.
I'm
not a lawyer, but we don't have any rules,
You're
so-
getting way ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't-
So-
I'm just trying to understand.
What's going to happen there, in my opinion, is you guys did a great job on this. I personally think probably the harder job here is maybe in Sarah's bailiwick to
Do the strike-throughs,
do the strike through and
make sure it's consistent.
for us, yeah, the consistency deal is really the part of it. And when you look at those four ordinances, I mean, there's cultivation and blah, you know, and on, but there's a consistent kind of theme to each one of those procedurally down through. And I think at one meeting we could probably get through a couple of them.
Perfect.
Maybe have 2 or 3 questions, 3 or 4 questions about it. And the ladies are here, they could help us with some
Perfect.
answers there. And I don't think the select board is in any way, shape, or form going to do anything but send this on to a vote. I mean, I think we've gone through enough so that it's gonna get voted on.
Yeah.
To a one of us, we know absolutely positively that if we said no to it, there'd be a petition with 250 names on it,
But-
without batting an eye.
Don't even
But
need
just
that
to help
many either.
Jewel,
Just,
that
No.
really shouldn't be
Study
the
that
concern of
next.
this committee. Okay, this committee should just, that's not, they can't be worried about what's happening, you know.
No.
What happens after this is.
Is there one author for most of these? I mean, I know you have a big committee, right? Who probably has the best understanding of these ordinances?
I
Would
wouldn't
it be
say
you
any one of
guys?
us in particular. I mean, we worked on this as a group,
Yeah.
and that's
Yeah.
how the decisions were made, as a group.
Mhm.
So I can't say I'm more knowledgeable or she's more knowledgeable. I mean, she's done a ton of work on research and everything.
Was Mike ever on here?
Everyone's
Was
knowledgeable.
Mike
He wasn't
ever?
actually a committee member, I don't think, but he's really knowledgeable,
And
Who?
Mike Everett.
He's not a committee member, but he's been very, very helpful to us.
Yeah, he's,
So, I mean, it'd be good to have people sort of here, not standing in the back, sort of
as
like
I said, he.
here that we can ask, we can say, can a member of the committee?
Mike Everett was in the office when I explained what we
Right.
were doing tonight and why, and he thought it was an outstanding idea. You know, good process, I mean, I don't care what you're doing in life, good process leads to good results.
Mhm.
Period. I
No,
don't care
if
whether
you-
you're
if
fixing
you
a
have a
car or selling I don't care what you're doing.
Yeah.
If you have a methodic approach to how you're gonna get your job done, you're gonna have a better outcome than if it's scrambled eggs.
Right.
Sorry, you know, so I think everybody, I hope, will respect that you are setting up process. That's all you're, you know.
I just like to, I like to understand, so I just want to make sure that there are people here from marijuana that I can ask for clarification and understanding of things, and people from the committee. I imagine Jewel will be filming, Jewel will be, and I know Pat, maybe Mike Everett would be,
Mike,
I
yeah,
mean.
we'll have Mike here. Mike is good for, like, the logistics,
Mhm.
more so than.
He's helped us in the
Yeah.
past.
He's a good resource, he has a
Yeah.
lot
It's
of
a good
knowledge.
resource, yeah, in case, well, right now, I haven't even laid eyes on these
Yeah.
yet, so. I might not be an issue at all.
He's also fair,
Mhm.
he's open-minded and
Mhm.
He-
he's kind to people.
His participation in front of the planning board, in my humble opinion, was respectful and constructive, and once the
Yeah.
rules were explained, he, you know, it was
Yeah, we
all
slept
good,
him
so.
around a bit before he got.
I'm
So-
sure you did.
And he's
Pat.
straightforward,
Yeah.
he's honest with people.
Yeah.
He doesn't mean, he's not insulting to them, he's not gonna talk behind your back.
Well, with that all said, so we're in agreement on what my assignment is. My assignment is to draft draft rules of procedure, taking your thoughts and comments. I will try to have, obviously, if we're gonna meet again on the 30th, you're gonna have it before then.
coming fast.
We have too many holidays, way too many Monday holidays.
There's just an awful lot in here that we don't need.
No,
Right.
absolutely, I understand that.
Are we limiting our meeting?
Really need another
Times.
member, because we won't have.
Are we what?
Are we limiting our times?
I recommend you do.
It's usually 9 o'clock.
No, that's planning board,
There's no
when they
way,
used to
I'm
start at
I'm
7.
sitting here for.
5:30 to, I would say 5:30 to 7:30 maximum,
Maximum,
5:30 to
yeah,
7
obviously.
maybe. You can only do, I mean, this is really dry work, you can only take so
Yeah,
many, you know.
and some of the meetings are set in an hour, some are planning board meetings still 2 and stuff, and I wouldn't.
Again,
It's
you
one
don't
thing
need,
if we're going good and we need to go over.
yeah,
that's
you
one
don't
thing, but-
need to specify an end time unless you would like to. I mean, the old
Okay.
planning board rules of procedure related, the times, we've never, they need to be updated and they haven't been, and that's true for the select board as well. Once upon a time, all meetings in the town of Bethel started at 7, and then I was the first person to move my boards all to 6 o'clock, because I like
Yeah.
to be home early. And everybody else followed suit, but unfortunately, so the end time and the rules of procedure for the planning board still say no business can be brought up after 9:30, I think, without.
says
a vote.
9, I think.
Is it 9, whatever, it's a long, 2 hours is a
2 hours.
long time, I mean, that's a
Well,
long, that's a.
the planning board I always understood, because there can be a lot of
Shouldn't say
stuff in
7 or
that
7:30.
meeting that's, people
hours
get brought in from
7:30.
other places and,
Do you want them, do
That'd
you want
certainly
it?
be plenty as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I don't want to go past 2 hours.
Yeah,
yeah.
not-
some
5:30,
longer,
7:30,
yeah.
Terry?
Yeah.
Okay.
Period,
Max.
yeah.
Okay.
7 would be better, you know.
Well, but do we even have to set a time?
No, you
And
don't,
ending
no, you
Well,
don't.
I wouldn't mind setting a
I
time.
think it's an end time, Philly, because
Okay,
I mean, of course, for
Yeah.
us, it's easier now if we're not having.
That's
like,
right.
audience
it's gonna be much
Right.
easier.
Well,
Right.
let's try 7 or something like that. We'll try an hour and a half. If we need to adjust it, we
Yeah,
can.
I go an hour and a half, because I think if we're not having interruptions, we're going to move through stuff fast.
Okay.
We can always adjust
So
it.
what
Well,
about
why don't we do this? Why don't we
An hour
say
and a half.
5:30 to 7 unless there's a majority vote?
Yeah, right, okay, right.
That way you, I mean, if you guys are on a
Because if
roll,
we have, we're on a roll,
if
we're like,
you're
we
on a
can finish
roll and
this
you're
in
getting all
15
kinds of
minutes.
stuff
Yeah,
done and it
exactly.
feels
Right.
good, and you're like, oh my god, only 2 more pages to go, let's, you
That's
know.
the court
It's
system.
just like not
The
knowing
federal
when
court
these
system,
meetings are gonna be over, yeah, that is kind of.
Yes, it can be.
Okay, I know what to do.
court case like the court did.
I love that.
It's pretty cool.
So as I say, I have copies, I personally propose that we not distribute these until after your rules are adopted, that's just otherwise I'm afraid if you come on the 30th, there's gonna be a room full of people, but that's just me.
You don't
So
wanna
as
give us
soon
the
as-
ordinance yet?
It's up to you.
As soon as those are handed out to us, then they're available, in theory, available to the
Well, they're, in
general
theory,
public.
they're available now, no one's asked for them. I guess no one knows that.
I love that stuff. That stuff
And I don't wanna start reviewing them the
That was
night
off the
of either,
record.
so we can get our
No,
homework done.
why don't I have them
I have
available,
my
why don't I
copies
make,
from months ago.
why don't I distribute, why don't I put it on the agenda that, there'll be just, well, the principal meeting for the principal rule, the purpose of your meeting on the 30th is to vote on your rules, so they can go to the select board for their meeting of the 5th. And then on the, whatever, what did we agree, the 6th of February is when you're gonna presumably elect officers, because you'll have the authority to do that.
Mhm.
And I would say that would be your first public, that would probably be a good time to have your first public review of these ordinances. So why don't I distribute them on the 30th?
Okay.
So that you guys have time to review them, so that members of the public have time to review them. But by the time you meet to actually do anything about them, you'll have rules in place.
So is there any reason that what we would put together on the 30th that goes to the selectmen, is there any reason that they would say no to any of that stuff?
Highly unlikely, I've never seen that happen.
I
unless-
just don't want to see them turn around and
Unless they
then
can
we
hide
have
that.
to turn around and go back and redo it and it puts everything off another.
Well,
2
I mean,
weeks.
the only, if they say, no, you need to have public hearings, I mean, in theory, they could do that, I suppose, but I would be shocked if they did.
I think it would just, in my mind, it would just confuse things and, again, the procedure would be you review, you send it back to the select board says, looks good to me, public hearing date. Kristen, when can we set that up?
Yeah, I'm
Yes.
99.9% sure that the select board has to approve the rules of procedure, yeah, I think that's true of all boards.
I mean, I know
I don't
that
think there's any problem
any of our
there.
fire department stuff, they have to approve
Yeah,
that.
yeah, so, but I mean, I would be, the only thing that I could think of is if, for some reason, if they wanna pass hot potatoes to you and force you to have public hearings, well, then you could object and not, whatever. I don't know what you would do, that's kind of a fun scenario.
Maybe it's not fun.
I'm only.
Just be advertising for more members.
Yeah, we need to have one more member would be nice.
So when they send it to the attorney, and the attorney has something that they wanna change, what happens then?
That usually just gets
It just
done.
happens.
It's just wordsmithing on
Nobody
the
knows.
Yeah.
And it may very well be that we look at the very first one and
And say we want to go
questions
to a
go
lawyer,
back and say, you know what,
we need a lawyer.
we need a lawyer. It
Okay.
it may need to fly right down there, right off the bat.
Who knows?
Well, see, wasn't this the friendly, constructive workshop you were looking for?
Yes,
It'd just be nice,
awesome.
you know, yeah.
This is
lots
great.
of
I
times
really-
next time.
Lock 'em
I feel
all in
like
next
we
time.
got something done.
You did, yeah. I mean, and again, this is the way it always was in the past. I don't, I'm not sure how it changed, it morphed into something else, yeah.
Well, I can remember an awful lot of these ordinance review committee meetings where the stuff was more just kind of mundane, and you get the wind towers, and you get the marijuana, and you get the plastic bags, and suddenly the level isn't here, it's up here in people's minds. So I think that's
Part of it.
just the level of how people feel about a particular
Yeah.
thing. We had wind tower stuff. I mean, I was probably as shocked as anybody else. I mean, we get it right down to a public hearing, and
All hell broke loose.
yeah, Bob Shadman, well, I guess I should have read it closer or something. Well, I don't, I
Don't
think
worry,
that,
it's coming back.
yeah,
It's coming back, it's
That
coming
just-
back by petition.
just,
Don't worry.
just what I told him. I said, there's nothing here carved in granite.
Okay, no, I think this was very constructive, and I think this was, thank you for coming and doing this. As I say, I was all ready to do something else, and I thought, oh gosh, I don't
Yeah.
know, I think this is a good idea.
Thanks for helping us through this process, because we'll continue muddling through.
And the feeling, there's nothing, it's sometimes, you know, like, when, you can gloat when you win, which is not attractive, but we all do it. But the feeling that, after that last meeting was universally awful. The author of the ordinance felt awful, you guys felt awful. I'm not so sure that the people who came here to sort of, you know, throw a monkey wrench, I'm not sure how terrific they really,
I think it hurt them.
well, I just, no, I don't think anyone left feeling really terrific about how the evening had gone, and that's a really crummy way, again, it's a volunteer.
The student here, I
Well, a
was
volunteer group of
embarrassed.
people, it's a really crummy way to spend your
Just
night, and, you know, I can't say that every night you're gonna walk out of here saying, wow, that was like the best night of my life, but at least if you can walk out and say, we got something done, that, you know, we got good work done, you can, you know, that's successful.
I still think she said it. I can just hear it.
Here's the fridge.
I'm still picturing her walking into Dunkin' Donuts with bags of garbage and returning it.
She's something else. Yeah.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
I will get working on this.
So we don't have to do that for a couple weeks, do we?
Not for a couple of weeks.